Hello and welcome. Tonight, National Assembly Joint Committee rejects 2024 budget for the Judiciary, gives a Minister of National Planning and DG Budget Office 24 hours to appear before it over poor allocation, queries AMCON over loss of 145 billion naira. Amid rising tension over the political crisis in Rivers, the state government demolishes State House of Assembly complex, damaged following the mysterious fire that gutted it in October. Federal Executive Council approves the removal of federal universities, polytechnics and colleges of education from the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System. And Vice President of the Economic Governance and Knowledge Management of AFDB, Professor Kevin Rama, says Africa loses $90 billion annually to illicit financial flows and seals training of public sector workers to block leakages in the system. On sports news, the Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Eno, is leading a ministerial retreat on athletes' performance in preparation for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games and the Africa Games in Abuja.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's stock market index crosses 72,000 points for the first time ever as it heads towards becoming one of the world's best-performing stock markets in 2023.
And from Abuja, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, urges judges of the Federal High Court to write judgments that can stand the test of time.
And in international news from London, the COP28 president has closed the climate conference after nations agreed a landmark deal to transition away from fossil fuels.
We begin from the National Assembly, where the Joint Committee on Judiciary and Human Rights today rejected the federal budget for the nation's judiciary. The committee consequently asked the Minister of National Planning and the Director General of the Budget Office to appear before it within the next 24 hours over what it regards as poor budgetary allocation to the judiciary. The decision was taken when the Secretary of the National Judicial Council appeared before the committee. Our National Assembly correspondent Gloria Umezoke reports.
It's the turn of the National Judicial Council to appear before the National Assembly Joint Committee on Judiciary and Human Rights. The Secretary of the Council is flanked by representatives from all the courts at various levels, and the one issue that dominates the conversation is the 165 billion naira allocation to the nation's judiciary.
Mr. Chairman, this is like a SOS presentation for the Nigerian judiciary. If we are really serious about justice administration in this country, this honorable and distinguished assembly has to do something urgently to save the soul of Nigerian judiciary.
This budget has failed. This project cannot be implemented. It cannot work. We cannot turn the judiciary arm of government to beggars.
Joint Committee of the Senate and the House of Representatives has resolved, without a single voice of dissent, to invite the Minister of National Planning and the DG Budget to appear before this committee unfailingly tomorrow, clearly encroaches upon the independence of the Nigerian judiciary. We will not allow a situation whereby the judiciary will go cap in hand, begging the executive for funds to fund their operation.
In another panel session, the Senate queried the management of Assets Management Company of Nigeria, AMCON, over 145 billion naira loss in 12 months as submitted to the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions.
I am a bit astonished by the fact that your balance sheet isn't looking good at all. For example, your total comprehensive profit and loss at the end of the year came into a loss of 145 billion naira. This call for concern.
Are we going to continue like this 13 years after? And can we say that the reason for the establishment of AMCON is justified under these circumstances?
The senators were no less satisfied when the AMCON chief told the panel that his administration has recovered about 648 billion naira out of the agency's 5 trillion naira total liability in 2023. During an interactive session with the Senate Committee on Finance, the Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPCL, Mr. Milikiari, declared that it has remitted 4.5 trillion naira generated revenue as at October this year into the Federation account, pronouncing better days ahead for the country. From the National Assembly, Gloria Omezuke, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the governor of the central bank, Mr. Yemi Cardozo, has dismissed the fears being expressed on possible cash crunch in the country. According to him, the seeming prevailing scarcity is due to hoarding of the currency by individuals who are concerned about the earlier December deadline for the circulation of some old notes. Mr. Cardozo made the clarification at a forum in Abuja for the release of World Bank's second Nigeria's Development Update report for the year 2023, with a projection of a 3.5% annual growth for 2023 to 2026 fiscal year.
Officials of the World Bank, the coordinating minister of the economy, and some other members of the President Tinubu economic team are in this meeting for the public presentation of the second edition of the Nigeria Development Update for 2023. It is a biannual report by the World Bank that assesses economic and social development and prospects for the country.
The Federal Executive Council,
the World Bank Country Director for Nigeria, sets the tone for the conversation.
The Nigeria Development Update, every 6 months we try to provide very publicly our assessment of where Nigeria stands, what are the challenges currently confronting Nigeria, as well as occasionally a spotlight on the longer-term development agenda. This is part of the effort to try and, provide more basis for an informed public discourse.
Questions about inflation and the current naira scarcity are at the core of the discussions during the panel session.
Addressing the issue of the naira scarcity. Yes, unfortunate, and really the history of that lies in the naira redesign policy. There was a lot of apprehension with respect to where this was all going to end, whether at the end of the year currency would no longer be good for legal tender, and many started hoarding. This is really what happened. Many started hoarding. Happily, the Supreme Court has decided, very clearly that the currencies will be valid post the end of the year.
The two key foreign exchange consumers, over 50% of import spending is on fuel and food. The refineries are coming on stream. The government is looking to persuade Nigerians in Nigeria and Nigerians abroad to save their dollars in instruments that are attractive and that are safe in Nigeria.
Other questions from the audience focus on exchange rate stabilization, as well as exports and imports.
We have consistent raw material exports. We realize that the value addition to those raw materials provide us more FX revenue. So now the administration is now focusing on processes or policies that will help to facilitate the creation of industries.
Then, of course, the backlog of foreign exchange forwards, which is obviously something dear to many people's hearts. We've already settled the outstandings of, I think, about 31 banks. On the rest, we are in negotiations as to the way and manners which those are also going to be settled. And in fact, the process of settling them has started.
Although the Nigeria Development Report commends the federal government for its economic reforms, it strongly recommends that the government take urgent steps to control inflation, sustain savings from the petrol subsidy reforms, and remove trade barriers.
There was a new twist to the political crisis in Rivers State today as the State House of Assembly complex was demolished, coming about 2 months after after a fire gutted the complex. Now, the demolition of the complex is said to have been carried out by the state government, which claims it is carrying out renovation work on the edifice. Meanwhile, the All Progressives Congress, the APC, has condemned the action of the government, accusing the state government of masterminding the inferno on the complex in the first place. Our correspondent, Charles Oporum, reports.
This is the River State House of Assembly on Moscow Road. The complex is again the center of attention as it is being outrightly demolished. At about 6:45 a.m. on Thursday, bulldozers said to be deployed to the House of Assembly by the state government approached the complex, bringing it down. The River State government, through the Commissioner for Information, Mr. Joe Johnson, says there is nothing to worry about as the government is only acting on the advice of consultants who warned that the building is no longer safe for habitation.
After the fire incident that took place on the 29th, arising from the visit of His Excellency, I was on that trip and we got there to assess the extent of damage. But beyond that, His Excellency also commissioned consultants who went into the structure and came up with an advice that it was no longer habitable and not very conducive for business. On the strength of that advice, the government had decided to demolish that structure and also provide a befitting place for members of parliament to transact their business. Well, the rapidity at which we commenced today will tell you that we're prepared to do it. And within record time, I'm sure that place will be fit for legislative business.
Reacting to the development, the River State APC caretaker chairman, Tony Okocha, accuses the state governor, Mr. Siminalayi Fubara, of being responsible for the fire that razed the complex in October.
Would 4 constitute 11, which of course ought to be 1/3 of members of the House. In other words, it is an action in illegality, and we will condemn it. We will keep condemning it. It has proven, the governor has proven us right when we said that he was responsible for the inferno, the fire issue in Assembly.
Elsewhere in the state, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Tunji Disu, assures residents that there is no cause for alarm as the police is ready to deal with any security breach.
This is a localized incident that happened within this area. It is not something trickling down to other parts of the state. For those willing to come home for Christmas, I beg you to kindly come home and spend nice time here with members of your family. We have increased policemen on the road. All nooks and crannies of the town are properly policed.
Once standing tall, a bastion of the legislative activity here in River State, the River State House of Assembly complex is being torn down. Residents of the city woke up to see bulldozers bringing down this edifice amidst claims of renovation work going on here. But in the midst of all of this, the Commissioner of Police in the state is assuring that this Yuletide, there will not be a breakdown of law and order, even as he calls on politicians in the state to be more circumspect in their actions. From Port Harcourt, River State, Charles Oporum, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, President Bola Tinubu sacks the Director General of the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, Captain Musa Nuhu. Plus, the United Nations Climate Conference in Dubai comes to an end after about 2 weeks of deliberations, with parties agreeing to replace fossil fuels with clean energy and reach global net zero emissions by the year 2050. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the News at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. National Assembly Joint Committee rejects 2024 budget for the Judiciary, gives Minister of National Planning and DG Budget Office 24 hours to appear before it over poor allocation, queries AMCON over loss of 145 billion naira. Amid rising tension over the political crisis in Rivers, the state government demolishes the State House of Assembly complex damaged following the mysterious fire that gutted it in October. Federal Executive Council approves the removal of federal universities, polytechnics and colleges of education from the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System. And Vice President of Economic Governance and Knowledge Management at AFDB, Professor Kevin Urama, says Africa loses $90 billion annually to illicit financial flows, seeks training of public sector workers to block leakages in the system. The President has sacked the Director General of the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA, Captain Musa Nuhu, from office. The decision, according to the President's Special Advisor on Media, Ajuri Ngalale, is to enable the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission investigate the activities of the NCAA Director General and other senior officials in the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. Captain Chris Najamo is to serve as the Acting Director General of the NCAA. Also affected in the sack is the Managing Director of the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, Mr. Kabir Mohammed, who has been removed from office and replaced with Mrs. Olubomi Kuku as the substantive Managing Director. Now, the Managing Director of the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, Mr. Taib Odunowo, has also been removed and replaced with Umar Farouk, while the Director General of the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau, NSIB, Akinola Olateru, has been replaced with Mr. Alex Bade Jr., and while Professor Charles Anosike replaces Professor Mansour Matazu as the Substantive Director General of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. The Rector of the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology, Captain Alkali Modibo, has replaced Mr. Joseph Shaka Imaligwe as the Acting Rector, pending the appointment of a Substantive Rector. In Ondo State, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Right Honourable Olamide Oladije, has acknowledged a receipt of a letter detailing the handover of power to the State Deputy Governor by the State Governor until there is a written declaration to the contrary. He made this known in Akure, the Ondo State capital, where he also explained the constitutional process for the transfer of power to the State Deputy Governor. The Speaker adds that he had briefed members of the House on the outcome of the meeting with President Bola Tinubu, and they have approved the letter from Governor Rotimi Akeredolu.
June 3rd this year, and within the period between June 3rd to date, I want to believe that this is the 5th letter of transmission from Executive Governor to His Excellency Loki Orimisan Idatiwa, and it's more or less, an administrative issue, a statutory issue, and a constitutional issue. The situation where Mr. Governor will forward a letter to us, and it is now my duty as the Speaker of Ondo State House of Assembly to communicate that to the Clerk of the House that he should put up a letter of which that will convey my approval to the Secretary to the State Government. So that has been the process since I came in as the Speaker of the Ondo State House of Assembly. The letter will come. I have received the letter. So my duty now, is to give instruction to the Clerk of the House to put up a letter of approval, of which I'm going to approve, and then we forward it to the SSG, and then from there, you guys can continue to build on that. So that is the process. So nothing like plenary. Yesterday, I have a parliamentary meeting with the honourable member yesterday to brief them of the outcome of our meeting with Mr. President, and they gave me approval that I should go ahead to release the letter.
Time to head to the nation's capital, where Gloria Umezuke is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Great to see you again, Gloria. Over to you.
Thank you, Ayo. Well, the federal universities, polytechnics and colleges of education have now been taken off the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System, IPIS. The approval for the exemption was given by the Federal Executive Council at its meeting today at the Presidential Villa. The Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Maman, made this known while briefing State House correspondents alongside other ministers on the outcome of the council meeting, saying the decision takes immediate effect. According to him, the council also observed that it was not necessary for vice-chancellors of universities to abandon their work and head to Abuja to process salaries of their personnel. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has consistently kicked against the inclusion of universities in IPIS by the government, being one of its major demands in its industrial dispute with the federal government.
President Bola Tinubu is expectedly chairing the Federal Executive Council, which is holding for the first time on a Wednesday since he assumed office as Nigeria's president. The meeting holds behind closed doors, and a few hours later, some ministers gathered to speak on the decisions taken. One of them is the approval of 2 memos for the Ministry of Aviation for projects worth over 7 billion naira.
Whilst we concentrate on the part of aviation that attracts the optics, what we call the optics, the clean toilets, the buildings, good arrival halls and all of that the public will want to see, we see all the time. There are very complex issues behind the scene that have to do with safety of our airspaces and all of that. We also want to improve those equipments, and this, of course, is the first step to improve some of those equipments.
The council also took steps to ensure the effective management of tertiary institutions in the country and increase their autonomy.
The universities today have got a very big relief from what the universities and other tertiary institutions from the IPPIS, the Integrated Personnel Payroll and Information System. You recall that the university authorities and ASU have been clamoring for the exemption of the universities and other tertiary institutions from this system. What that means in simple language is that the university administration, the university authorities and other tertiary institutions will now be paying their own personnel from their own end instead of relying on the IPPIS that has been the case.
Before now, when the tertiary education institutions want to make recruitment, they have to run to the office of the head of service, for waiver, for approval, for all that sort of thing. Today, too, the council, through the directive of the president, has exempted them from that.
The council is also said to have considered the high amount of funds said to be lost to the issue of waivers and has decided to review the amount of waivers that are being given out in a bid to increase revenue to the country. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
To legal matters, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, is asking judges of the Federal High Court to write judgments that can stand the test of time. According to him, such judgments should leave the appellate court with an option of affirming it whenever it is brought before them. The CJN was speaking at the opening of the Judges' Conference in Abuja. Our judiciary correspondent, Emanuela Ekele, reports.
I warmly congratulate.
Judges of the Federal High Court are here at the ceremonial courtroom for the Judges' Conference as part of activities to mark the 2023-2024 legal year.
Judicial Council.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, and some federal lawmakers are in attendance. This is the 50th anniversary of the Federal High Court, and the Chief Judge of the Court outlines the relevance of the conference.
The object of this conference, therefore, is to critically discuss any issues confronting us as a court and seek remedies to them. We will also be addressed by practitioners in different fields of knowledge and learning, which will help us to continue to have a grip on our health and intellectual competence.
In his charge to the judges, the CJN wants them to take the appointment seriously, work hard and write judgments that the Court of Appeal cannot overturn.
Do not assume that what then are the gentlemen at the appellate court doing. No. Let that court affirm your decision. Always write your judgment that the appellate courts will have no choice than to affirm your decision. Don't leave any loophole.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria further charges them to make relevant consultations with laws and rules before writing judgments.
It is your court. You are not there to impress anyone at all. If you need to take a break, to consult your notes, to consult your books before you rule, no application by counsel is simple. Make relevant consultations and come to give your ruling.
Established in 1973 in a single courtroom and 5 judges in Lagos, the court now has 37 divisions and 95 judges. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
The Coordinating Minister for Health, Professor Ali Pate, has highlighted the importance of the National Health Act and speaks on the federal government's intention for the health sector in the years ahead. This comes as various partnerships are being built to ensure that Nigerians get the best of health services. He was speaking on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily, where he also touched on the current administration's quest to foster partnerships between state governments, federal government, and private organizations.
So first of all, for 8 years, on getting to 9 years, we've had a National Health Act passed in 2014, which provided for the national health system, comprising the Federal Ministry of Health and the state ministries of health and other actors coming together. That national health system hadn't come together until yesterday when this president pushed forward, got a compact between federal government, states, and development partners coming along. That is a major step in terms of implementation of that vision of the Federal Republic of Nigeria coming along to invest in the health of the population. Secondly, the federal government increased its own allocation for health, including at the front ends. In 2014, you will see as the appropriation is concluded, that's the direction. The expectation is that states will also match that, will also reciprocate, increase their own allocation, and we will track the increases, the releases, and the pace of execution.
Still to come on the news at 10. Nigeria's stock market index crosses 72,000 points for the first time ever as it heads towards becoming one of the world's best performing stock market in 2023. But that's in business news. Do join us again.
Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10 on Channels Television. Now it's back to our story on the leadership changes in the nation's aviation sector, where the President, Bola Tinubu, has suspended the Director General of the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA, Captain Musa Nuhu, from office. This decision, according to the President's Special Advisor on Media, Ajuri Ngalale, is to enable the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission investigate the activities of the NCAA Director General and other senior officials in the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority. Captain Chris Najomo, in the meantime, is to serve as the Acting Director General of the NCAA. Eight years after his passing, the legacy of one of Nigeria's greatest boardroom gurus, Gamaliel Onosode, continues to reverberate in various sectors, including the academia. During the official commissioning of the Gamaliel and Susan Onosode International Management and Research Center at the Lagos Business School, guests, including the Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, eulogized him for the values of integrity and forthrightness he stood for. Our correspondent, Chris Leps, reports.
Guests arrived for Lagos Business School for a very special occasion in honor of the late Gamaliel Onosode, one of Nigeria's topmost management and business icon, who passed away in 2015. His love for education birthed a partnership with the Lagos Business with the reception of the Gamaliel and Susan International Management and Research Center, which is set to be officially commissioned today. But first, a remark by the Dean of the school.
Even though we are commissioning this building today, we could not wait to move in. We moved in several years ago so that we can start doing things that can be seen and things that will have impact in our society.
The occasion brings together like minds, captains of industry, researchers, scholars, and much more. For 10 years and counting, the foundation has continued to contribute towards education development, and the chairman of the board highlights the journey and reasons for the partnership with LBS.
Lagos Business School is a strong brand, and the Ondo brand is equally strong, built on values such as integrity, hard work, selflessness, patriotism, and passion for excellence, for which Ondo was known.
The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, as all other guests, eulogizes Gambelia Onosode's foundation for preserving the founder's legacy. His remark is delivered by the Secretary to the State Government.
I commend the Gamaliel Onosode Foundation for making these highly rewarding investments in human capacity development to preserve the legacy of a man widely acknowledged for his brilliance and astuteness.
The International Management and Research Center will house several research centers and initiatives, such as the Sustainability Center, Christopher Colladi Center for Research and Leadership, and many more. The event climaxes with the official commissioning and a tour of the facility. Family and friends expressed delight over the initiative and the contribution it would have on the broader socio-economic landscape of the country.
He was intellectual, he was intelligent, he was a wise man, he was a man of values, societal values.
Can you imagine somebody who left us to join the ancestors many years back? Today we are talking about him, we are celebrating him. That means he has left a legacy.
We will truly appreciate more support from all our friends.
Incorporated in May 2013, the Gamaliel and Susan Foundation is a not-for-profit and non-political organization established to foster the success of children through innovative, flexible learning opportunities while providing the enabling environment. Chris Alems, Channels Television News.
To company news, Unilever has spent 100 years in Nigeria, and as part of events lined up for this remarkable milestone, the company has hosted its key stakeholders to a night of celebration in Lagos. Unilever Nigeria PLC is the longest-serving manufacturing company in Nigeria, with several household name brands that have stayed with Nigerian consumers from generation to generation.
Gentlemen, it's a remarkable milestone, and this event is a way for the centenary-old organization to bring some of its partners, collaborators, shareholders, and other friends of its business together. Gentlemen, Unilever is also the longest-serving manufacturing British company in Nigeria, which is why this event is held at the residence of the British Deputy High Commissioner in Lagos.
But what I do want to celebrate tonight is the 100 years, which is the long-standing historical links between the UK and Nigeria. A shared culture, the links between people and businesses has spanned those decades.
Having been around for a century, the management and board of the organization say the company has evolved over the years and will continue to make impact.
Not only as a question of survival, but also of impact, we continue to drive our localization agenda, and today already 70% of our board and raw materials and packaging materials are manufactured or provided in Nigeria, so direct impact on the economy of Nigeria.
It is a triumph made possible by the unwavering dedication and hard work of our esteemed board members, our committed management, and every single member of our staff, both present and past.
The states where the company operates are also committing to a better working relationship.
As your landlord in the Agbara Industrial Estate in Ondo State, and in line with our vision, which is to provide an enabling environment for public-private sector partnership, which we believe is very fundamental to the economic growth of the state and the individual prosperity of our citizens. I'm very excited about some of the plans we have as a state government to create more of an enabling environment in Agbara, part of which I shared at the breakfast meeting 2 weeks ago with other CEOs.
With 1,000 workforce, including salesmen and women, Unilever Nigeria says it is committed to creating a socially inclusive workplace and promoting equity, diversity and inclusion.
Together, hip hip! Hip hip!
Leading smart life brand Itel has unveiled a new logo to herald a fresh era of innovation, customer-centric philosophy, and a remarkable shift in brand identity suited to the dynamic needs of end users. Sales Director for Itel West Africa, Vicky Chen, explains that Itel's new look and logo underscore the brand's commitment to being a reliable, innovative, and ahead-of-the-market brand without compromising on its core values of affordability, quality, and accessibility. The unveiling also featured the launch of the Itel P55 series, which features 4 variants, including the Itel P55 5G.
The process of come is what? The process of become is what?
After 16 remarkable years in the market, Itel is hosting its brand ambassadors and partners to celebrate resilience and the latest breakthrough, the Itel P55 series, and the launch of a new logo.
3, 2, let's go! Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together.
Sales Director for Itel West Africa, Vicky Chen, and other officials reaffirmed the company's commitment in reshaping the smart life in emerging markets.
So looking ahead, we plan to stay consumer-centric, adapting to evolving needs through a blend of technology and empathy.
Itel's new look and logo underscore its brand commitment to being a reliable, innovative, and ahead-of-the-market brand.
Itel is the global #1 smartphone brand for mobile phones under the $100 categories in Africa as well.
The devices are built with unique features to empower users' productivity and overall enjoyment.
Itel has advanced with P55. Here we consider game lovers. There's an amazing feature called the Game Booster. With this, game users will enjoy seamless experience.
One thing I can say about this phone is you would not have to worry about your phone saying, oh, I don't have space when you're trying to create content or you're trying to take pictures. So the phone has a very great phone storage, so that's on check. And then the final and most important feature to me is the camera quality. I mean, the camera quality is super, super clear.
NEPA is so important, so if you put off the lights, you practically cannot do anything. So this phone has 6,000 milliamp hour battery. This means that you can practically charge your phone in the morning and don't worry about anything battery.
Itel says its new logo and P55 series underscores the brand's promise of providing quality yet pocket-friendly products that resonate with user demands and give consumers an opportunity to pick from a range of sophisticated devices that spark up their electronic experience.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of business with Ann Waldo.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Ayatunde. Hello and welcome to Business News. Developing countries, including Nigeria, have spent a record $443.5 billion just to service the external public and publicly guaranteed debt for the year 2022, amid the biggest surge in global interest rates in 4 decades. While data contained in the World Bank latest international debt report adds that debt service payments, which includes principal and interest, increased by 5% for all developing countries. Now, that increase in borrowing costs has also shifted scarce resources away from critical needs like health, education, and environment. The report findings also show that 75 countries eligible to borrow from the World Bank's International Development Association paid a record $88.5 $23.9 billion in debt servicing costs in the year 2022, with interest payments quadrupling to an all-time high of $23.6 billion. Meanwhile, overall debt servicing costs for the 24 poorest countries are expected to rise in 2023 and the year 2024 by as much as 39%. The Vice President of Economic Governance and Knowledge Management at the African Development Bank Group, Professor Kevin Rama, has called for adequate training of public sector workers in Nigeria. This is in order to plug leakages in Nigeria and other African economies. Professor Rama, who was a guest on our Business Morning program, highlighted the training by the AFDB, which cuts across several countries around the African continent, will be beneficial in the long term, especially in the area of fiscal planning and finance management.
We know that illicit financial flows and bad management of public finances has been a major challenge, not only in Africa, but also globally. In Africa, we're currently losing over almost 80 billion, almost 90 billion US dollars annually on illicit financial flows. And that happens through several ways that money flows out of economies illegally. And blocking that will help to retain a lot of revenue for African countries to be able to address most of the fiscal challenges that countries currently face and continue to face. So you ask, how are we going to make this impactful? The reason for us to focus on public financial management officials, debt management officials, people who are working in the budget offices in governments across the continent is precisely for us to be able to tackle the issue with the people who are doers, who are really supposed to be the regulators, the people who manage the approvals and initiations and dissemination of everything relating to public financing on the continent. One of the tools we are developing, which will be launched next year, is what we've called, Public Service Delivery Index, which is going to create a transparent indicator on how public servants are delivering on the services promised to countries during their tenure and regime. And that is something we're doing with the African Union Commission and several coalitions of institutions.
Well, another historic feat has been achieved in Nigeria's stock market. Its benchmark performance indicator, that's the all-share index, crossed into 72,000 level for the first time in its history. Well, the NGX ASI, which opened the year, has defied all economic challenges. It has also had projections that it beat the initial historic 15-year high. And let's go back to the stock market now, where Laddie Williams has more details about the numbers and the figures at the close of trade today.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the third consecutive green close for the week, and the NGX is at a new level. There we have it, 72,299 points for the all-share index. First time ever, 0.55%. That was added right there. Let's look at the trading activity there. We're seeing buy pressure today. Buying trades at 423 million units of stocks valued at a big 7.92 billion naira. See deals 6,500. Let's go back to that 7,000 level. Let's look at the sectoral performance. We see financial services again 3.42% shining today. Consumer goods down 0.18%. And looking at the figures now, we see Axis Holding PLC, after gaining 0.99% yesterday, up a big 8.09%. Other tier 1 banks all adding to their share price today. We see the likes of UBA, FBNH, Axis Core, Zenith Bank adding 2.54%. So we're seeing them shining. A stockbroker I spoke to said this is due to balance sheets of big listed companies, particularly the banks, getting bigger. So December is definitely looking great with new territories being taken. We've crossed the 40% year-to-date gain level, hit the 72K level for the first time ever. All eyes now on the market cap of the NGX as it roars to the 40 trillion level. That's it from me on the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams.
Oladi. Now let's the closing numbers for other major markets. News for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Ayotunde.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial star 894 hash now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
All right, thank you so much, Anne. The Egypt electoral body has started counting votes following the conclusion of polling in the presidential elections. Voting began on Sunday and ended at 9 p.m. local time on Tuesday, with more than 67 million people registered to vote. The official results are set to be announced on December the 18th. Here's Simon Kuzi with other international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber has closed the climate conference after nations agreed to a deal to transition away from fossil fuels. The deal doesn't contain the words phasing out fossil fuels, as many had hoped, but it is a landmark agreement nonetheless, marking the first time in 3 decades of COP climate summits that nations have agreed on a concerted move away from oil, gas and coal, which account for about 80% of global energy. The future role of fossil fuels has by far been the most contentious issue at the 2-week COP28 summit in Dubai.
We have confronted realities and we have set the world in the right direction. We have given it a robust action plan to keep 1.5 within reach. It is a plan that is led by the science. It is a balanced plan that tackles emissions, bridges the gap on adaptation, reimagines global finance, and delivers on loss and damage.
The United Nations refugee chief has warned that the Gaza conflict could spur more displacement in the region as various bodies meet to seek solutions to the growing crisis. An overnight storm has worsened conditions for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have fled their homes. Many are in makeshift shelters or sleeping rough. Fighting from Israel's bombardment of Gaza since the October the 7th attack by Hamas gunmen has internally displaced 85% of the Palestinian enclave's population. A record 114 million people around the world have been driven from their homes, including about 40 million refugees fleeing dozens of active conflicts.
The events that have occurred in Israel and Gaza since the 7th of October are outside the mandate of UNHCR. Tragically, however, we foresee more civilian deaths and suffering, and also further displacement that threatens the region.
Dozens of people have been injured in a wave of missile strikes on the Ukrainian capital Kyiv overnight. 53 people were hurt in the attacks, including 6 children. That's according to Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko. Kindergarten and hospital buildings were reportedly damaged by debris, as authorities said 10 Russian ballistic missiles had been shot down. Wednesday's attack on Kyiv began at around 3 a.m., the third Russian missile strike on the capital in the past week. India's parliament has witnessed chaotic scenes after at least 2 intruders ran into the chamber shouting slogans and spraying coloured gas. Lawmakers said the 2 men jumped into the well of the House from the visitors' gallery. Images show MPs and security officials trying to catch one of the intruders, who was seen jumping from table to table. The security breach occurred on the 22nd anniversary of a deadly militant attack on India's parliament. Reports say the men were overpowered by security officials and taken away. The High Court in Uganda's capital, Kampala, has sentenced a 25-year-old serial killer to 105 years in prison. Musa Musazizi was sentenced on Wednesday after pleading guilty to the murder of 3 women, said to be his girlfriends, and a 3-month-old girl who was the child of one of his victims. He reportedly pursued romantic relationships with the women before sexually assaulting and killing them, then burning and disposing of their bodies. Musazizi had been arrested in March 2021 on suspicion of killing 5 women and an infant. And Tesla is recalling more than 2 million cars after the US regulator found its driver assistance system, Autopilot, was partly defective. It follows a 2-year investigation into crashes at the firm owned by billionaire Elon Musk, which occurred when Autopilot was in use. The recall applies to almost every Tesla sold in the US since the Autopilot feature was launched in 2015. Tesla said it would send a software update over the air to fix the issue. The update happens automatically and does not require a visit to a dealership or garage, but is still referred to by the regulator as a recall. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you so much, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. The Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Ondo, is leading a ministerial retreat on athletes' performance ahead of the Olympic Games and Africa Games next year. The aim of the retreat is to address some of the factors responsible for the poor performance of Nigerian athletes at international sports competitions. The Sports Minister said the retreat is necessary to evaluate strategies in training regimens for athletes and official codes of conduct, anti-doping education, and the roles of national sports federations in ensuring podium success in Paris and Ghana. In football, Manchester City's treble-winning coach Pep Guardiola is among the finalists for the Best FIFA Men's Coach Awards. Guardiola won the English Premier League, the English FA Cup and the UEFA Champions League titles last season. He is joined by Simone Inzaghi, who led Inter Milan FC to the Champions League final, while they also lifted the Coppa Italia. The third finalist is Luciano Spalletti, who ended Napoli's 33-year Scudetto drought when they won the Serie A title with 5 games to spare. And of course, in the UEFA Champions League, Manchester City completed a perfect Champions League group stage as 20-year-old Micah Hamilton and Oscar Bob scored their first goals for the club in a 3-2 victory at Red Star Belgrade. Now, the defending champions had already secured their place in the last 16 as Group G winners, allowing Pep Guardiola the luxury to make 9 changes. Bob and Hamilton were 2 of the youngsters given their chance to shine on European football's biggest stage and revelled in the occasion. And the main news again. The National Assembly Joint Committee today rejected the 2024 budget for the Judiciary, just as the committee gave the Minister of National Planning and DG Budget Office 24 hours to appear before it over poor allocation to the arm of government. That's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun, and do have a good night, and please stay safe.